All of you,
Good morning.
I hope all of you are doing well today. We'll start off with our first seminar for this unit on the topic security as a concept. I have 2 points to make before we hand over the virtual microphone to our speakers. Please make sure all of your microphones are on mute, the X button. There's no feedback. Thank you. The first point is that I'll be facilitating the presentation. So we'll have the presentations from the 3 or 4 presenters during the specified period, and it will be only presentations. And the second point is that the Q&A or questions and answers will be in the forums, respective forums, in audio or video form. So for this week, your questions, whatever questions you have from this session, or whatever comments you have or answers to questions, you can share in the discussion forum in week 2 and week 3. Week 2 and week 3 discussion forum. All right, so these are the 2 major talks have it. Let's take note. Okay, so for this session, our discussion is on security as a concept. And if you read the literature, if you generally observe what has happened over the years, you see that first of all, we started talking about security as a military issue or an issue that involves military threats. So when we grew up around the 90s, 91, 92, 93, there was this rumor going around that Indonesia will invade us. Indonesian soldiers will come across the border and then come and take over PNG. So that was a common military threat that was circulating throughout the country during the 1990s. But as we evolved, military threats no longer became that important or discussed or became uh, were not viable because the world changed due to globalization. We now have other security threats that are not associated with military or another state. Threats like cyber threats, cyber security is now a big issue. We have the environmental security. We all concerned about climate change, rising sea level, and also political security, economic security. All of us are concerned about income, jobs, how we will sustain ourselves. So these are the non-traditional security issues have become vital in all countries around the world and in all regions. So before we talk mainly about traditional security threats, so traditional security that's state to state. But today it's more about non-traditional security threats involving the society, our economy, politics, environment, and all these different non-traditional security issues. So hopefully you understand this difference between traditional and non-traditional. And to help us further understand, we will now listen to our presenters, our 7 presenters. We'll talk about key thinkers in the security space. So in security studies, Barry Buzan and Paul Williams. Uh, just one word of advice: don't limit yourself to these 2 scholars. There are so many other international relations scholars that write about security studies. They define security in different ways. So you can consult other security experts or scholars and then compare what they've written to Buzzard and Williams just to expand your knowledge about what security is as a concept. So without further delay, we'll now move on to. I'll hand over the virtual microphone to Tess. Tess Duri. Miss Duri will be representing Group 5. Yes, please go ahead with your answer to your question.
Thank you. Good morning to you all fellow students and Mr. Yagira. As already mentioned, I will be representing Group 5 and we will be answering the question, how does contested nature, essentially contested concept, shapes the way security is studied and applied in practice? And what challenges does it present for achieving global consensus on security priorities? So before I continue with the question, I would elaborate on the term, essentially contested concept. The term refers to or means that security is ambiguous in the sense that not only one definition can be used to define security, because it does not have a fixed definition. Describing security as an essentially contested concept was a statement mentioned by Walter Bryce Gully in a proposed concept he had did an analysis on that was published in 1956. The term may be referred to as having the continuous need or urge to fully define, interpret, and bring to conclusion any issue, theory, belief, or idea that is bound to change or be viewed in a different manner or perspective. Security can mean many different things to many people, especially to states and international organizations in the global arena. It can be perceived differently due to different values and contexts, and it may be viewed by scholars as having different perspectives and definitions also. Security, with security, there can be no consensus to its meaning, therefore it has different things, it may mean different things to different people. For example, traditional realists may view it as military-focused security, while human security perspectives expand the concept to include economic security, environmental, and looking at it from societal dimensions also. This complicates the study of security. Most scholars within the international relations work with the definition of security that involves the elevation of threats to cherished values. Security is unavoidably political. That is, it plays a vital role in deciding who gets what, when, and how in world politics, as cited by Laswell 1963 in Williams 2008. We move on to the first question. That question was, how does this contested nature shape the way security is studied and applied in practice? This contested nature shapes security by creating diverse interpretations. And if we look at it from the scholars or academic point of view, it provides a gap for these scholars and academics and even students like us in understanding that security evolves and it changes to adjust to the need of people at a specific time and period. Even before our time, different scholars have different perspectives and interpretations of what security meant. Hence, in the field of IR, there isn't a universal definition of IR or security, which leads to debates and discussions about what the term actually means. With understanding that the term can be perceived differently, in practicality, it affects individual states. It affects the way they formulate their policies, both national and foreign, and the way they implement these policies and adapt to it annually or on the international stage too. This may also affect bilateral or multilateral relationships that states have to one another with their own national interests. For instance, a country that focuses on military security might spend more on defense, while another which focuses on human security may focus more on education and health. We move on to the second part of the question, which was, what challenges does it present for achieving global consensus on security priorities? The challenges in achieving global consensus is because of a lack of universal definition, which creates barriers in forming reliable global security strategies. One of the main challenges, there are many challenges, but one that my group have chose is on national interest. And as we have mentioned prior, each state have their own national interest at heart and would do anything to achieve that interest, even if it is at the expense of another state, which leads to conflict of interests. Other challenges may include power dynamic, norms in global security, and this may be through cybersecurity, terrorism, health crisis, war, and immigration. To conclude, the term security has many dynamics and influences. Thus, defining the term as having an essentially contested nature proves that the term has an expanded and evolving classification amongst individuals. Therefore, in practicing the application of security, it becomes more of an issue when there is a recognition and identification of inconsistent strategic implementations at all levels of a country's affair and development structure. So diverse views on security brings about challenges it creates. Therefore, it creates different priorities like military strength, economic stability, or even human rights. These perspectives shape the decision of policymakers, leading to the need for consistent reassessment and adaptation of strategies in response to evolving threats and global changes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tess, representing group number 5. We'll move on to our second presenter. But before we do that, I hope you guys or you people took note of what Tess said, especially the first line. She said, security is an essentially contested term, and there are no fixed definitions. And like I said earlier on, we are now looking at Barry Buzan and Paul Williams, but if you look at other scholars and their work, they define security differently. But one important thing that you can do is just look at the definitions, identify the keywords, and then identify the keywords, and then you can put together your definition or put together your understanding of what security is. What are the keywords in the various definitions of security, uh, and what, so based on the keywords, you can put together what security is, or you can do that for other concepts or theories or words. So identifying the keywords in the different definitions and putting them together logically helps you understand what the concept or the word is, or what it means. We'll move on to our next presenter, Mr. Gimi Sive.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Uh, so I'll be representing Group 4 for the seminar presentation, Security as a Concept. So the question that we were given, or the phrase that we were given was, Williams outlined two contrasting philosophies of security, one focused on accumulation of power, and the other on emancipation and human rights. So the question that we were given was, how do these philosophies influence the prioritization of security policies, and which approach is more effective in addressing contemporary global challenges? So we've broken down the question into two parts. The first part is, how does these philosophies influence the prioritization of security policies? And the other is, which approach is more effective in addressing contemporary global challenges? So according to Paul V. Williams, You mentioned what he stated about accumulation of power is that accumulation of power is understand security as a commodity. And it stands on the idea that to be secure, people must have property, money, weapons, or armies, etc., so that they can be secure. It also believes that the power. It also believes that power is the root to security. That is, it suggests that having power, particularly military power, is believed to lead to security. The idea is that more power a country or a group has, the safer they feel because they can protect themselves from threats. So that's what accumulation of power usually talks about. So in accumulation of power, people or governments who practice accumulation of power invest more into military power to increase their power or their control. So under the next philosophy, emancipation and human rights. Emancipation, as defined by Collins English Dictionary, means to be free from social, political, or legal constraints. So under this philosophy understands security as a relation between actors rather than a commodity. So it stands on a relationship and trust between different countries. That with that, it from the trust gained from the relationship, that is where security comes in, or they feel more secure with the trust they have with different actors or countries. That is, it believes that having a good relationship with another actor creates trust, which in turn secures the two parties. It also involves gaining a degree of confidence about their relationship that comes through sharing a certain commitment. So under emancipation and human rights, this philosophy, it stands on relationships. It stands on relationships where one country and another country have a common ground where they want to work together. So that trust within the trust with one another creates that security. With that, in the second philosophy, it says the security does not come from the ability to exercise power over others. Rather, it comes from cooperating to achieve security without depriving others of it. Plum 1982 argued that international security must rest on a commitment to joint survival rather than on the threat of mutual destruction. So the two philosophies, the accumulation of power states that more power comes more security, whilst emancipation and human rights, they don't really focus more on power, but on the relationship they build with one another. So the trust with each other creates that security. So to answer the questions, for the question part A, our group believes that according to the first philosophy, security is a commodity that states can acquire through having more power. As a result, we believe that the first philosophy would influence security policies to prioritize acquisition of power. Security policies will also prioritize the expansion of military capacity and the advancement of military technologies. Policies will also aim to impose regional influence at the international level. So for part B, which approach is more effective in addressing contemporary global challenges? So contemporary global challenges refers to complex issues facing the world today, like for example, climate change, poverty, inequality, political instability, pandemics. Our answer towards this question is in addressing contemporary global challenges, the first philosophy is not effective since it focused more on building its power and its security is not effective. While the first philosophy provides security from immediate threats of violence, it is not sustainable in the long term as global challenges are more diverse. Therefore, it calls for more than just power. The second philosophy seems to be the most effective since it centers on relationship and trust. Today, global challenges cover multiple countries and do not abide to the traditional state. Do not abide to traditional state versus state conflicts. So we believe that the second philosophy will address these challenges well because they are common challenges faced in almost all countries around the world. To conclude, emancipation of power is that more power, more security, not pardon. Accumulation of power is that more power comes more security, while emancipation in human rights focuses more on trust and relationship building to tackle common agendas or common problems together. So in answering the questions, um, like I have stated, it is more concerned for part A. It is more concerned with growing power than it is to then it will use the first philosophy if it is more concerned in growing its power. But if it's to achieve a common goal with another country, it will use the second philosophy, that is emancipation and human rights, to tackle contemporary global challenges. In the second question, we believe that the second philosophy, that is emancipation and human rights, will be the proper philosophy to use to tackle global challenges. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute the whole time. Hey, why did you people tell? Oh my god. Okay. Uh, I I just made a reflective statement on what Mr. Gibby Siva stated. The answer to the question. Group 5. Firstly, I thank them. I thank Group 4 and Mr. Gibby Siva for sharing the answer with us or answers, and also Tess for sharing a group's answer with us. And if you have any questions or comments, please utilize our forums for this week 2 forum and week 3. Yeah, that was what I said. And I also gave the example of COVID-19. Even though some countries had a big military force and all these complicated equipments, but in the case of a pandemic, they were defenseless. Huh? China, America, millions of people died. They were not able to use the defense force to address the threat of a pandemic, a disease that was airborne and spread very quickly throughout the cities and the various locations. So reflect on the two contrasting philosophies, and if you have any more questions or further questions, you can ask Gufo and Mr. Gimi Seve. So take note of the two philosophies. We'll move on now to our third presenter. Sorry, Miss Moment. Switzerland, go ahead.
Am I audible? Oh, okay. So representing group number 2, I will be presenting to you guys the concept of environmental security as per the theme of this week, security as a concern, by answering the question allocated to us. The question is, according to William Buzan's environmental security sector emphasizes the importance of biosphere as the foundation of all human enterprises. How does this perspective influence global security policies, and what are the implications for international cooperation in addressing environmental crises such as deforestation and water scarcity? So we've broken down our presentation into 3 parts, starting with environmental security, the biosphere. So understanding that in the book Security Studies, William explained that security has been a concern of humans throughout history before it became a formal academic field. So traditionally it was about military, and then with the arrival of Barry Buzan, after the Cold War in 1983, he published a book, People, State, and Fear. He created five framework with five. He created, pardon, a framework with 5 sectors that affect security. One of which is environmental sector, which we will be talking about. Now, environmental security and the biosphere. Environmental security recognizes the crucial role of the biosphere, which is living things and their environment, because it is the foundation of everything that humans do. Understanding this concept is not just about science, but genuinely acknowledging our connection with the natural world. So environmental disasters or events such as climate change, habitat destruction, pollution, and many more puts the biosphere under great threat and endangers human lives. If, that is why it is worthy of security studies. So linking environmental the second part is linking environmental sector in with global security policies. Looking through liberalist point of view, states collaboration is encouraged. So global security includes military and diplomatic measures that nations and international organizations such as the UN and NATO take to ensure mutual safety and security. So the perspective of environmental security can influence and the global security as a result of human security and environmental health. So the perspective recognizes conflict preve- recognizes global security policies as states collaborate to pre- prevent conflict and encourages global cooperation. So states collaborate together to address environmental threats. Moving on to implications, using the 2 examples that was mentioned in our question, the implications for international cooperation. The first example is deforestation. Now, deforestation is in one country can contribute to climate change, and this has a global impact. According to Grantham Research Institute 2023, deforestation is responsible for 12 to 20% of all greenhouse emissions globally. Now, damaging forests and destroying tropical peatlands also adds to problems due to tropical destruction. Now, tropical forest absorb more carbon dioxide than they release. But now that forests are destroying, they are doing the opposite. They are releasing more carbon dioxide into atmosphere, making climate change worse. Let us consider the Amazon rainforest, for example. It may seem like a local issue, but it has global implication. The Amazon plays a crucial role in regulating the Earth's climate. Thus, the destruction contribute to climate change, influencing crucial influencing extreme weather events, sea level rise, and other environmental problems that threatens worldwide security. This makes global cooperation essential not only to protect the Amazon rainforest, but also to protect and safeguard global security. Wild, World Wildlife Fund's 2020. Two international agreements addressing deforestation in Amazon at the moment are the UN and the Paris Agreement. The second example is water scarcity. According to research in three regions, namely the Sahel region, Arab region, and Africa, all have interstate conflict due to water scarcity because most of the countries in these regions share water resources such as rivers and aquifers. Therefore, this water scarcity can increase the risk of conflict, according to UNESCO 2024. So global cooperation and environmental security, such as this, can be a source of peace. By working together, making agreements, and managing water better, it is possible not only to prevent conflicts, but also to contribute to development and greater prosperity. Government of Netherlands 2024. So UNESCO 2024 stated that the framework agreement on the Sava River Basin, signed in 2002 by Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, and some other countries, was the first multilateral development-oriented agreement in Southeast Europe. It has successfully laid the groundwork for sustainable water management. 2 decades after its adaptation, it has become a key driver of stability in the region and now serves as an example of best practice for other regions of the world. To conclude, I'll leave you guys with a quote by Jim Clyburn. Environmental policy must strike a balance between the Earth's best interest and our citizens' pressing needs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fridolin and Group 2. Okay, this time I managed to unmute myself. So after Fridolin, I'll just go through the lineup. We'll have Stella Marie and then Yvonne. After Yvonne, we'll have Marcus. And after Marcus, we'll conclude with
No, and
Tanya.
showing me time. You're showing me time, man. I mean, never. Sorry.
So after Marcus, we'll have Tanya. So Tanya will conclude the presentation for this morning. But really, really interesting points made by Fridolin. I hope you took note. I think one keyword that Marape has been saying over and over is carbon sponge. Huh? Carbon sponge. Have you been reading the newspaper? Carbon and then sponge. The sponge we used to soak up water, wash dishes. So he's saying that our forest is a sponge that absorbs all the carbon. So it's important for us to protect our rainforest. Deforestation is a really big security issue, especially for countries like Brazil and Papua New Guinea. We have the is it third or fourth largest rainforest in the world. That's for people to go find out. But very interesting points made by Fridolin and Group 2. If you have any questions or comments, please share with us in the discussion forums for this week and for the one for week 3. We'll move on to our next presenter, Miss Ai, representing group number 1. Salamari, the virtual microphone is yours. Stella Maris, sorry, unmute. Make sure you unmute and then. Maybe there's an issue with the microphone or something.
Yeah, yeah. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
No, it's okay. Sorry for the issue. So the question, the statement given to us for security beyond military concerns. So how has this expanded framework reshaped the study and practice of security, particularly in addressing non-traditional threats like climate change and economic instability? So from the reading, we see that security has different meanings to people, depending on the time and place in human history, according to Rothschild 1995. The most prominent meaning of security that came from scholars was engaged in peace research, security of the people and states all into the world wars. So according to Williams, the concept of security involved the elevation of the threats, the cherished values, and was considered a vital subfield of international relations. So traditionally, security is associated with politics, power plays in the international arena. States use military approaches to gain power, for instance, through the development of nuclear weapons or other military arsenals in other states that were seen as a threat to national security. Also, the development and enhancement of the military states feels secular. However, Barry Buzan security was not just about states and military force, but related to all human collectives. He then developed a framework which he stated that the security of human collectives was affected by five major factors: military, political, economic, societal, and environmental factors. Now, to answer the question given to us, which is, how does this explanatory framework reshape the study and practice of security, particularly in addressing non-traditional threats like climate change and economic instability? So Buzan's concept for security has expanded the framework and significantly reshaped the study and practice of security, which has allowed attention to be given to areas such as the environment and economics to address non-traditional threats like climate change and economic instability, which are part of state security to defend for the safety of humanity. Asian Development Bank ADB report 2012 has confirmed that the Asia Pacific region is vulnerable to climate change due to its dependency on natural resources and the agricultural sectors. Therefore, these Pacific countries facing threats of climate change such as storms, bushfires, and rising sea level, and also economic stability, can use Bhutan's expanded framework to improve their access to resource finance and markets necessary to sustain levels of their welfare. whilst mitigation aims to address climate change threats or environmental insecurities. On the other hand, governments need to understand environmental degradation by a natural cause or through the impacts of climate change, including its history, with input from the environmental experts or environment experts, fully address the threats of climate change and its related economic setbacks. So a good example that my group and I've come up with is the Pacific Island Forum, also known as the PIF. It is an intergovernmental organization that was founded in 1970 to foster cooperation among Pacific Island countries to address common challenges. Now, this organization came up with a plan to address climate change by developing a public assistance facility. This facility is a financial facility where the Pacific Island countries provide support or grants towards this facility. And then this facility gives funds and support to island communities that are affected by climate change and fund projects that will prevent climate change impacts such as seawall building or mangrove planting. So Pacific Island Forum also uses the platform to address other security issues such as economic instability in the Pacific region. So during the PIF, the leaders of each Pacific Island countries meet and discuss and establish trade relations to foster economic growth through diversifying through economic bases. Hence, if one economic sector faces challenges in generating revenue for their country, the other sector is there to sustain the country's economy, and most importantly, they help each other to stabilize their economy. So in that way, the state's relationship with other states in terms of politics is acknowledged. And this is only given the effectiveness of Buzan's claim that security is not just about states, but all human collectives. Thank you, and that's all.
Thank you, Stella Marie and Group 1. Please, if you have any questions or comments for them, you can share in our discussion forum, either in video or audio form for this week or next week. But really interesting information given. One important point I would like to make is the five sectors, Busan's five sectors. It's a really important framework that you can use as a journalist or as an analyst when you're looking at security issues or reporting them, writing about it, or analyzing it for a specific situation. You can use the five sectors and then you look at the situation. Is it a political situation, security issue? Is it an economic, societal, or environmental security issue? So Busan's sectors can be used as analytical framework in whatever uh, capacity or in whatever form you want to use, or whatever job you're doing, whether you're reporting or whether you're analyzing. This is a useful framework that you can use. All right, just one point. And we move on to the next presenter, Yvonne Bilsam, Abu representing a group. The virtual microphone is yours. But once again, if you have any questions, comments for all our presenters so far, Tess, Kalange, Fritzalin, and Stella Marie, please share in our discussion forum. Yvonne, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Yagira. Um, so I'll be representing this week. Just to rephrase on our question, the question is, William describes security as the elevation of threats of the cherished values, but acknowledges its contested and sensitive nature. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, but not clear. Group six.
Is it working now? Thank you.
Yeah, it's clear now.
Sorry, going back to the question, just to simplify it, you said that since the definition of security is debated and varies depending on perspectives, how does this affect the way we identify security threats and it creates international security policies? So our group, we have separated the question into two parts. The first question, it refers to the impacts of the identification of security threats. So according to Williams 2008, it explains that security is all about protecting important values and beliefs of a state, nation, or a particular group of people from threats. These threats may originate externally or internally. Moreover, Williams claims that security is subjective. This means that different people, groups, and states perceive security differently according to their beliefs and interests. What is classified as a threat to a person, group, or state may not be categorized or as a threat to another. Security is subjective because people, communities, and countries prioritize different values, beliefs, and how they categorize what is secure from what is considered a threat. The definition of security can differ greatly between people, state, and groups, and is often shaped by culture, politics, and experience. So if you think about what we've learned in year two about the theories of IR, this resonates with the theory of constructivism, whereby it is believed that people and state make decisions based on interactions, history, and how they perceive the world. So an example, around earlier this year, January, the president of US pulled out US out from the Paris Agreement and global climate efforts. So this agreement, it binds the signatories to pledge efforts against climate change. So in recent news, Honorable James Marape he condemned this action and called out President Donald Trump regarding this action. So this whole situation, it demonstrates how different countries perceive threats. For island countries like PNG and especially Tuvalu and Kiribati, climate change is a very serious security threat. Unlike the US, depending on the leader, climate change is not a threat to the nation and it focuses on addressing other security threats such as increasing military capacity, seizing illegal migration, cybersecurity, and economic threats. So not all threats are of equal political significance. Therefore, leadership also affects how a state identifies a threat. Onto the second part of the question, formulation of international security strategies. So the lack of consensus on security threats due to the contested definition of security, it can delay the international cooperation regarding international security strategies. These delays can cause states to develop separate strategies for addressing security threats, as according to Smith 2005. On the contrary, countries with similar security views are more likely to create agreements or treaties. For example, if many nations believe that global warming poses a security risk, they may come together to create international agreements to address this. Again, going back to the Paris Agreement. Moreover, this time is a factor that affects the formulation of security strategies. The security strategies from the past will not work in this area due to advancement of technology and security.
This also supports the idea that security threats are defined differently based on different time periods. That is all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Group 6 and Yvonne. A really good answer, and I hope others will have taken all of that. A good example of Donald Trump, he really shifted the security perspective of the US, from environmental security to focus on economic and societal threats. And he said creating jobs and putting an end to other countries taking advantage of our market and trading is more important in terms of economic threats and societal threats. He was talking about fentanyl. Have you been following what he's been saying online in the media? Fentanyl is a drug, is something like morphine, pain-killing drug that makes you go drowsy. And I don't know, I've never tried fentanyl or morphine or something. So maybe some of you did already. So is that fentanyl is really causing a lot of, issues in the society and a lot of mental issues as well. So it's more focused on addressing that rather than climate change. So yes, prompted our Prime Minister James Marape to come out and say that US should come back on board and help us address the issue of climate change, environmental security, but that is not his focus at the moment. So it's really interesting if you refer back to our discussion now on the different sectors and on what Buzan and Williams are saying. All right, and I got some information that is why, because our PM Marape came out and talked about Donald Trump, the CIA, they were not happy, so they didn't invite us to the Munich Security Conference, and they only invited Fiji because Fiji didn't say anything out in the media. So that's one chatter that I picked up in the intelligence community. So just for you to know. We'll move on to the next presenter for today, Mr. Wambuan Jr., and then we'll conclude with Ms. Voivoi. So, Marcus, the virtual microphone is yours. But if you have any questions for Yvonne and a group, please say in our discussion forum comments.
Hello. Oh, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Yagura class. So, without any delay, let me take you straight to our group findings and discussion of one of the security concept, which is social security. So basically, there are five security concepts according to Barry Buzan, which includes national security, human security, economic security, environment security, and social security, which is the concept that we are going to talk about. So before I begin answering the questions that was given to our group, which is how do modern challenges and on globalization and social media impact societal security, and what role should the government play in mitigating identity-based conflicts without fostering exclusion or nationalism. So firstly, let us define some keywords in these questions so that we can have a better understanding of societal security concept. So in the question that was provided, there are 6 keywords for us to define and understand. In that way, it will give us fair ideas on the societal security. So first keyword, which is security concept. So it's basically security is a state of being free from danger, threat, or harm. That's one security concept. Societal security, that's number 2 keywords. So it's basically is the ability of a society to maintain its identity, unity, and a way of life in the face of external or internal threats. So that's number 2. Number 3 keywords, it's globalization. So basically, globalization refers to the increasing interconnectedness and interdependency of economics, cultures, societies, and politics across the world. That's number 3 keywords. Number 4 keywords is social media. So social media, it's basically refers to digital platforms and applications enable users to create, share, and engage with content in real time. Number 5 keywords is cultural identity. So cultural identity refers to the self-beliefs, tradition, customs, language, and practices that define a particular group of people. And finally, national identity, which is the last keyword. National identity is basically the sense of belonging to a specific nation based on shared history, language, territory, and governance. So now that we have understood those keywords, it will help us to have a fair idea of the question that will be answered soon. So before we go on understanding societal security, so according to Buzan, Barry Buzan, the concept of societal security, it basically prioritizes the survival and well-being of collective identities surrounding cultural, national, and religious connection, whilst Michael William highlights that or focus on how those threats to this identity can destabilize societies and even lead to conflict. So with that being said, basically societal security centers around or protect cultural and national identities. With that, now going forward to the questions. So in the question that was provided to us, there are 2 questions. First, it's how do modern challenges on globalization and social media impact security, societal security? So we have come up with three challenges, but there are many challenges that will affect societal security. One of the challenges is migration. So migration is one of the challenges that impact societal security. So when different ethnic and and altering their own culture, which is the identity. So second, challenges on globalization on societal security is cultural homogenization, which basically is a dominance of culture. The third is economy disparity. So in terms of globalization, challenge on globalization, societal security, these 3 can be one of the major challenges that impact societal security. And in regards to social media, the impact of societal security. So there are countless challenges that impact or affect social media, societal security. So I will just mention three challenges that affect social media that affect societal security. So it's spreading of disinformation or fake news through online platforms. One is cyberbullying, and the other is digital radicalization, which is basically some extremist group posted or go online, spreading their own ideology or agenda. So that is 6 points where I would say that affects societal security, which is globalization and social media. So the second question in the question itself, what role should the government play in mitigating identity-based conflicts without fostering exclusion or nationalism? So in the article of security William highlights the countless points or countless policies that it put place to how government can help mitigate identity-based conflicts and fostering exclusion or nationalism. So here are some points: promoting inclusivity. Government should provide and promote inclusivity, diversity, and social cohesion or unity. Number two, implementing policies that protects the rights of all individuals, regardless of their identity, ensuring equal opportunities and access to resources for everyone. 4 points. It will be by government encourage open discussion and promoting tolerance. Promoting tolerance, the government can create a more inclusive society where individuals feel valued and respected for who they are. And also, government can regulate social media and misinformation to prevent identity-based conflict. With that, the government should strive to create a society that celebrates diversity and promote unity while actively working to address identity-based conflicts in a constructive and inclusive manner. With that, thank you.
All right, thank you, Marcus, and your group three. Really interesting answer. I hope many of you, or those of you in the meeting room, took note of what Marcus shared with us. I mean, you can make reference to current situations, current examples. We have, in the case of May Torovi Asola, have you been following what's happening? Our queen, Miss PNG. I think she's pretty, but I don't know why people are bullying her on cyberspace or on social media channels. And Prime Minister James Marape has threatened to shut down Facebook if we continue with the abuse and the bullying. So that's something that all of you should take note. And the other case related to identity-based conflict, the latest one, was it today or yesterday? Or yesterday or the day before, the day after that? The Central Governor Rufina Pita came out and supported the Guilala settlers at the Baruni settlement, those who were involved in the brutal murder of a young female. She supported the people and she said she'll help them. And now there's, if you go on social media, it has gone viral. Everyone is saying, why are you supporting these people who are murderers? But then she said there are people within the settlement, genuine Guilala people who are innocent. So she's fighting, advocating for their human rights. So it's a really interesting. So it has now turned into a identity-based conflict. It's Guilala versus the rest of PNG, and it's going viral on social media now. So you can observe and see how it goes. So yeah, but thank you, Marcus, for adding to the discussion. We'll move on to our final presenter to conclude, Ms. Voivoy. And I think your microphone is not working. Check your microphone. You can move and sit down with someone or use someone's computer, someone whose microphone is working well.
Okay, what is?
I think it's okay.
Cordelia, Rennie. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, now we can hear. Thank you.
So sorry for the technical difficulties. I will jump straight into our presentation. So I will be presenting on behalf of group number 7. And the question that we were given reads, how can the politicization of security influence the prioritization of certain issues? And what are the consequences for marginalized groups or regions? So before I jump into answering the questions, I'll break down the question so you guys can understand what we're trying to bring across. So Williams defined the politicization of security as a process through which security issues are framed, interpreted, and prioritized based on political interests instead of objective threats alone. In simple terms, security is something that cannot function on its own, but has to be influenced by political decision making. So how can politicization of security influence the prioritization of certain issues? We came up with 3 points. Point number 1, securitization and agenda setting. The Copenhagen School's securitization theory explains how political issues are turned into security threats. Political leaders or groups may present an issue as a serious danger to a nation, community, or individual, leading to urgent responses. For example, terrorism is often prioritized, diverting resources from other threats like climate change. Similarly, immigration can be framed as a risk to a nation's identity and stability, with claims that it overwhelms resources and disrupts society, turning it into a security concern. Point number 2, state interest and power politics. Governments and elites shape security priorities to protect their nation's interests, achieve strategic goals, and promote their beliefs. They focus on defending territory, citizens, and economic resources by assessing threats and setting policies. So strategic objectives like forming alliances or strengthening military power help nations maintain stability and influence. As a result, military threats are often prioritized over other issues like health security or economic inequality. The third point is international and regional dynamics. So powerful states and international organizations significantly influence the global security agenda. This often leads to the prioritization of issues that support the interests of dominant actors such as the politicians or policymakers and government elites. These dynamics are interconnected, and changes in one area can have ripple effects on others. For instance, a conflict in one region can draw in global powers, leading to shifts in alliances and security strategies elsewhere. Moving on to the second question, what are the consequences for marginalized groups or regions? We came up with 3 points also. The first point is exclusion and increased vulnerability. So marginalized groups often have little say in security policies, leading to their needs being overlooked. Governments prioritize political and strategic concerns, ignoring issues like harm to environmental harm to indigenous groups or violence against ethnic minorities. Additionally, security measures can unfairly harm these communities. For example, in the Philippines, the war on drugs has led to the targeting and killing of poor individuals and the detention of children. Point number 2, criminalization and repression. So in the name of security, everyday activities in marginalized groups can be criminalized. For example, homelessness and drug use may be punished instead of addressing their root cause. Military forces in domestic security can lead to violent repression with minority groups, causing conflict or targeted under the guise of fighting rebellion. Governments may also pass laws that unfairly affect marginalized groups. For instance, anti-terrorism laws can be used to silence political opposition or activism among minority communities. And the last group is the last point, pardon me, is geopolitical neglect. Some regions receive less international attention and aid because they are not seen as strategically important. Crisis in parts of Africa, South Asia, or Latin America often gets less media coverage and global intervention than those in key geopolitical areas like the Middle East. So when security is prioritized, funds that could support development and social programs are instead spent on defense. This leaves marginalized groups underfunded with limited access to healthcare, education, and infrastructure. These factors highlight the importance of adapting inclusive and equitable security policies that consider the needs and rights of all communities, ensuring that security concerns do not lead to the neglect and marginalization of vulnerable groups and regions. Thank you. That brings me to the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you, Tanya and Group 7. Really good answer, and it adds to our understanding so far, what we've discussed so far, and the concept of security. Some interesting points. One, Tanya talked about the importance of politicians. They politicize security issues, and that's how it connects back to the budget priority, leads to budget allocation, and then you see some sectors getting more funds to address issues that are uh, threatening to us, and then other sectors are underfunded. And one example that we have seen over the years is since 2013 the country under Peter O'Neill, we came up with the national security policy, but we have not prioritized that and funded the creation of the National Security Agency up until last year, when Prime Minister Marape asked if we can start a secretariat and then review the national security policy. So because of that, you've seen the increase in crime over the years. Since 2013, 2014, in Medellin, it's no longer safe for you to walk around in the night. And not only Medellin, but right across the country because of weak national security or internal security mechanisms. Our police not doing their job. They're not working with other security agencies to ensure that our communities are safe, our society and our neighborhood. So where's the money gone to? Which sector has been prioritized over national security? That's the question new future leaders should ask. And once, if you're in a position of influence, then where will you prioritize? Or which sector will you prioritize? If it's the national security sector, then which particular sector? Maritime security, military security, societal security, looking at pandemics, looking at our culture. So these are issues that US future leaders should take note of. And also, if you look at this whole politicization, it connects with media as well. The media plays a really fundamental role to influence the perception of our leaders, bureaucrats. So if the media is always reporting about rape and killing and all that, then our leaders and policymakers will now say that, oh, okay, this internal security is a big issue. We should put more money into policing and create an elite force, police force to go around the country to address all these issues. Oh, environmental security is very important. That's where the media report every day. So the media also plays a really pivotal role in influencing how we prioritize security issues. All right, so that brings us to the end of our presentation for today. So if you have any questions for the presenter representing the different groups, you can share your questions and your comments in the respective forums for week 2 and week 3. The week 2 one will close on Sunday. So if you are unable to post it in that particular forum, you can post it the week 3 one, which will open on Monday and close on Sunday next week. All right, so that's all. I'll stop the recording and then if you have any other questions or comments, we can take.